He cried for blood, he raved for blood, till a fearful change began, and he turned to rend the peaceful flocks and lost the shape of man. His shoulders bare were clothed with hair, his limbs grew long and lean, yet still you might trace on his wolfish face what once the wretch had been. The grisly locks were hard and stiff, the eye was cold and keen, and the savage sneer of Lycan's mouth in the famished wolf was seen. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Howling Halloween 2.
I just know he's gonna jump out somewhere.
Hello.
Well, ladies and gents, we have arrived at the end of Howling Halloween 2, and what a season it's been. I feel like this batch of werewolf movies varied more in tone than the previous year, but let's continue with that trend with the final film of the year, Van Helsing. So at the very end of my review of Viking Wolf, which you should check out if you haven't already, and if you ever want to see your family again, I said how every werewolf film I've reviewed had at least something to help it stand out from the rest of the pack. And while this doesn't apply to Viking Wolf, I think it certainly applies to Van Helsing, with the tone being that of an action movie with some attempted bits of horror. I say that because, well, they certainly attempted. Even borderlining an early 2000s superhero movie, but I mean that in the best way, because for all this movie's flaws, it's a really fun, casual movie, especially if you like werewolves and monsters. I definitely am not going to try and defend this film saying that it's a masterpiece that was misunderstood by the critics at the time and that the film has no flaws. I mean, for starters, the CGI is very dated, with it looking not great, but I'd say solid considering the time this movie came out.
I want first bite.
It's hideous.
To absolutely terrible. It doesn't help that the movie uses a lot of CGI, with the bulk of it being used on the various monsters we see. I'd say that really only one set of monsters looks consistently good throughout the entire film, and that are the werewolves, but I'll talk about those later. Another issue of the movie is that the characters are your very action cliche standing characters. You got the mysterious badass who's gruff, but can also be friendly with those he trusts. You got the hot love interest who's sassy and can hold her own in a fight. And you got the nerdy loser sidekick that is really, really unfunny.
I am?
You cursed. Not very well, mind you, but you're a monk. You shouldn't curse at all.
And actually, I'm still just a friar. I can curse all I want. Damn it.
Okay, to be fair, he does have one really funny line.
That's 2 nights from now. Even then, you'll still be able to fight Dracula's hold over you until the final stroke of midnight.
Sounds like I have nothing to worry about.
Oh my god, you should be terrified.
The delivery on that one is probably what carried it, but still, I find that line hilarious. For the 3 main protagonists, all the actors do a good enough job where you at least don't hate the characters and they are likable enough, but it's really only because of the acting, not necessarily the writing. The one other protagonist that does kind of stand out is Frankenstein, but he's basically just treated as a magical MacGuffin that everyone is after. And unfortunately doesn't get too much development, or at the very least the development he does get is very rushed and feels like it could have been more heavily explored throughout the film. The comedy ranges from really painful to a couple of decent one-liners, but the hilariousness doesn't come from any of the jokes, but from Dracula and his wives, who are hands down the best characters in the whole film. All the actors are clearly having the time of their lives, bringing these vampires and getting to be as hammy and over the top as possible. It's really fun to see Drac mess with people whenever they try to kill him, but since he can only be killed by one thing, it's pretty funny seeing him going along with it, because, why not? It can't kill him and probably doesn't hurt too much, and even if it did, he'll heal eventually, plus he's just an empty husk, according to his own words. Also, his wives just doing whatever this is with their hands is also extremely entertaining as well. Now, I really like his wives, especially Alira, for 2 obvious reasons. Her eyes. Nah, I'm just kidding, it's definitely her mommy milkers. Hey, I can enjoy some mommy milkers and still be a feminist. Wait, can I still be a feminist and like boobies?
Hello.
Hey, I got a question, real
What's
quick to ask you. Can I still be a feminist if I like boobies?
I mean, you're still appreciating women, right?
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
See, folks, I told ya. The black and white opening and the whole way it plays out is also a fun callback to early monster movies. Aside from vampires and werewolves, we get to see a version of Mr. Hyde, which is basically the Hulk, which would still be considered a more faithful version of the Hulk instead of whatever the modern MCU and She-Hulk presented him as. This Mr. Hyde is also a much better version of the one in that terrible Tom Cruise Mummy movie where it's just Russell Crowe, but he just looks more evil. Ooh. Tom Cruise mostly makes hit movies, or at least entertaining ones, but that one, woof. The action is also a lot of fun, with the technology being a nice blend of fictional and fitting the time. For example, the automatic crossbow, which I've actually seen in a Mopop display, and trust me, I definitely would want to fire that puppy. All of these are used in various action scenes throughout the film, with almost all of the action scenes being really fun and enjoyable, none of them feeling too repetitive or similar to one another. In this film, we are treated to 3 different werewolves, with all of them matching the style of this universe, but all very distinct and terrifying and cool in their own unique ways. The first one being the silver gray werewolf, which in my opinion is probably the scariest looking, but it's the first one we see and we don't see a ton of it, but its presence still makes an impact. Next is the brown werewolf, which is actually Velicon Valerius, after being bitten by the first werewolf, and he's the one that has the best transformation scene, with him almost being possessed by it as he climbs up the walls and starts tearing off sections of his own flesh and skin. Of the 3, it's probably the most standard looking, but it's still cool nonetheless. In my opinion, it gets the second coolest looking shot in the film. However, that being said, neither of these two don't have anything on Van Helsing's werewolf design, which is hands down my favorite werewolf design ever. I love the American Werewolf in London design, but this right here is what I imagine when I hear the word werewolf. Big, muscular, long pointy ears, massive head, monstrous wolf-like face. Pure perfection. Plus making it that shiny black just makes it cooler. I learned that if we just take shiny Pokemon logic, then making something black automatically makes it cooler. Now we get to the final battle between Van Helsing and Dracula. And let me tell you folks, I love this battle. Sure, the actual CGI in the environment isn't the greatest, but everything else is top notch. First, this is probably the only moment in any of the other movies that the word badass could be applied, and rightfully so. It kind of reminds me of the Incredible Hulk final battle opening.
But we need not find ourselves on opposite sides of the board.
We are then treated to probably the best werewolf versus vampire fight ever. I mean, I can't think of a ton, and the only ones that are coming to my mind are the Twilight and Underworld movies, which neither of those are good. But I still stand by my point. Anyways, the fight is violent, fast-paced, with both monsters properly showing their abilities, making it actually seem like nearly 2 indestructible monsters are fighting one another. I love how even though Dracula can fly and is significantly larger, the agility of Van Helsing can easily match him in the building as he leaps all over the place and tackles him. I swear everything this werewolf does is just so cool. That motherfucker just really showed Dracula them freshly sharpened claws. Just as Van Helsing is about to kill Dracula, he transforms back into a human, in which Dracula continues to monologue to him, despite this being the perfect opportunity to either just run and stay far enough away until that first night has passed and then he would have control over him, or just kill him right then and there. I know he wants to have him team up willingly, but why risk it? I mean, he's already been brutalized this much. Anyways, we get a nice, cheesy, cliche line.
Some things are better left forgotten.
Van Helsing transforms back into a werewolf and kills Drac, and while I don't get why, but every time I see Drac's dying face, it just reminds me of Robin Williams. I could not tell you why. I guess that's just another mystery of what kind of up goes on in Cameron's head. But that's pretty much Van Helsing, or at least the parts worth talking about. It's an incredibly fun movie that I highly recommend if you're looking for a good time. And with that comes the end of Howling Halloween. I certainly feel that this year had both a wider range of tones and genres as well as quality of films, with some being great and others being Viking Wolf, but thank you again, everyone, for your awesome support. It really means a lot. Anyways, I'm Cam.
Thanks all those buttons. Stay safe out there, and he'll see you all later. Probably. Bye-bye.